Hi, I'm Paul Williams, the defensive back coach here at Temple University, and I'm going to share with you the drills we use to develop our defensive backs on a daily basis.
We like to start the day off doing warm-up drills, and the first thing I like to do is ball drills. I like to do 45, 90, 135 drills to really get the guys loose and make sure we're always catching the ball. So the first drill here is what we call 45-degree break, where the guy's going to take 2 to 3 pedals, plant with that outside foot, and like I say, I'm going to throw him the ball. I want him to catch the ball all the time. So that's the first drill we like to start off with. The next ball drill I go to is the 90-degree breaks, and the same thing. We're gonna pedal about 3 or 4 yards, and then I want the guys to plant with the outside foot, get those hips open, and break at 90 degrees. And again, we're always gonna throw the ball. Like I say, that's the biggest thing we want to do in warm up. We want to slowly get those guys loose, but I always want to catch the ball. And the last drill we like to do in warm up is what we call 135, 135-degree breaks. And the whole thing is now I want to throw a deeper ball. We've done the 45s and 90s, so the guys are kind of warm. So I'm going to pedal them about 5 yards. I'm going to open them up at a 135-degree angle and throw the ball. I want them to go get it at the highest point. And like I say, by that time, by doing a couple right and left with the 45, 90, and then when we get to the 135, now they're looser where you can open them up a little bit and, like I say, throw the ball up there highest point and make them go get it.
I want to talk about stance. The biggest thing with defensive backs, because you'll have big guys, you'll have small guys. I think the biggest thing is they got to be comfortable. And what I try to do is the first stance I talk about is a staggered stance with our inside foot up and then put our outside foot back. And what I want them to do is I want them to flex at the knees. I want to get those hips over the shoulder. I want them to relax their arms. And I want them comfortable. I want the defensive back comfortable. Where he's got vision, he can see everything in front of him. And like I say, that's our base stance as far as if we're going to play any type of 3D or we're going to play any type of quarters or off man, we would use what we call a staggered stance. The next stance I want to talk about is what we call a balanced stance. So now his feet are parallel from one another. His hands are relaxed. He's got a balanced stance. Now we use this stance when we're in man coverage. This is our balanced stance. And like I say, feet are slightly shoulder width. Again, he wants his chest over his knees. And like I say, he wants his arms relaxed, and he want his eyes looking at the receiver's hips. But this is what we call our balanced stance. In the defensive back, he can relax his hands a little bit here. I like him to relax a little bit because most of the first movement out of this stance is going to be some type of lateral movement. They'll never just open in this stance. But it'll be a lateral movement with some type of opposite hand jam. Next, I want to talk about the back pedal. The most important skill for a defensive back is the back pedal. To start, we want to push off the front foot. We transfer weight to the back foot by taking a short 4 to 6 inch lead step, as you see here with the defensive back. We want to keep our hips positioned underneath our shoulders during the first step. We try to maintain our center of gravity while moving backwards. We use our arms to generate that initial momentum. The speed at which the back pedal is determined is based on where we are. Initially, we always take slow reed steps, and then we start to pick up the pedal. The biggest thing we like to do is push and sit as we're reading the 3-step. You have to understand, we're not running backwards, we're taking short strides. We want the feet gliding across the grass as light as possible. We want the feet touching the grass. If they're not touching the grass, we're too high. We want our arms locked, and we want our hands loose. And I think some of the biggest issues you have with the back pedal is, number one, like I say, you can never do enough back pedaling. Number two, I always like to use the line. So if the defensive back is out of control, he'll be all over that line. If he's in control, you can judge him just as you're looking here. The defensive backs are they're on the line, and they're not getting off of it. And then the other thing you want to make sure those elbows is tight. As you look at the defensive back here, his elbows could be a little tighter, and he can probably bend a little bit at the hips. And then the other thing that you want to try to prevent, a lot of defensive backs will pop up. But like I say, you want to have balance. If you're all over the place, then you got to take extra steps to transition. And as I said earlier, you can never do enough back pedals.
The 180-degree open is the next drill we want to talk about. The biggest thing with the 180-degree open, now you're using everything we've talked about. You're using your stance, where we have a nice balanced stance. We're using our back pedal, and now the next thing we want to be able to do is, now your cushion's getting broken, or you're reading a quarterback, and he's getting ready to throw the ball. So now what you have to do is, now you have to get your hips open at 180 degrees. So the first thing you want to be able to do is get that left foot open. So you got to get that toe pointed north. You want to snap the head and get that elbow around. The quicker you can get that around, you can get back to full speed. Because you got to understand, once you go to open, you're not at full speed anymore. And the biggest thing is, how quick can you get that toe pointed north and get that head and elbow around. Now, the one thing that I make our guys do, I always want them looking back first, so they get used to it and they're seeing everything. Unless we were just in straight man, or we're turning our head and we're looking at the guy. But I want them to get in the habit of seeing it. And then the other thing is, I always like to do these drills on a line, so you can look at the DB. If he's all over the place, okay, if he's off that line by a lot, then he's out of control. All right, again, you look at it here. You see how quick he gets that elbow around, get that foot pointed north. You see how those hips snap? See how they snap around? Okay, now he's in pretty good shape, and that's the biggest thing. Same thing here. You're watching how he's getting snapped around.
Now I want to talk about the partner cushion drill. What the partner cushion drill is, as a defensive back coach, the back pedal always drives you crazy, because your guys always want to open up as soon as they're attacked. They just want to get out of that pedal. And what this drill allows us to do is to make them strain. So what I do is, I get them 8 yards from the receiver. So I'll get a cone there, and then I'll get a cone another 10 yards. And what I try to teach our guys, if you can strain for 10 yards, all right, and most of your 5-step drops, they will break that route off anywhere from 12 to 14. So if you can strain for 10 yards, you can see everything in front of you and be ready to break and drive. What a lot of young guys want to do is they want to take 2 or 3 pedals and open. And nowadays, especially in college, with all these good quarterbacks and everything's off of timing, what they want to do, if you open, they want to throw those timing routes right now. And what we want to allow our guys, if we can maintain our pedal and doesn't allow those guys to see us open our hips, now we make their job tougher. So again, what I want the DB to do is I just want them to strain in that pedal. So I like to get those guys 4 or 5 reps with this, and where they really learn how to work that pedal, and stay in it and trust it. But it's something, like I say, I like to do quite often. Now the next phase of it is now you go into one-on-ones. Okay, so you're watching here. You're watching the defensive back in one-on-ones. He's straining in that pedal. Okay, he can see everything in front of him, which allows him to see that receiver sink his hips. When the receiver sinks his hips, he can plant and drive on the upfield shoulder, and allows him to be able to play the ball. Same thing here. As you see the defensive back straining the pedal, he sees the receiver sinks his hips. He's allowed to stay in front of it, and now he gets a great break and drive and has a chance to play the ball. Now I want to talk about the second phase of the partner cushion drill, is the partner cushion open. And what I want from the defensive back now is the drill before is we just strained in the pedal. Now I teach those guys, you're in your pedal, now you got to understand when your cushion is broken. So at 3 yards, or 3.5 for some guys, that's where they got to understand. Now they got to burst open. They got to get those, they got to get their hips open. They got to flip that elbow, flip those hips, get that foot pointed north. And now you also want to impede the progress of the receiver, because what you have to understand now is you got to understand when you go to open, you're going to lose a second and a half. So you want to make up with that time. The quicker your transition is, getting that foot open, getting that head around, okay, and then if you stack the receiver, like you're seeing the defensive back here and impede his progress, all right, you will allow yourself to gain momentum and get back to full speed where you can run with them. But I really like working this drill. Like I say, so those guys understand, okay, that all right, about 3.5 yards, my cushion's broken now. Now I want to open and burst. Next, we're going to talk about the Look and Lean series. The first series we want to talk about is in phase. When you're talking about being in phase is what I try to talk. I always tell our guys, you're either in phase or you're out of phase. If you can touch a receiver, I consider that being in phase. You can touch his wrists, you can touch his hips, you're in good shape. And what I try to do with the in phase drill is I try to get I get 2 lines, and what I want is I want the receiver to run 3/4 speed, and I put the defensive back on his back hip, and I tell him, hey, you're in phase, but you got to fight to stay in phase. And I think the biggest thing that you get with defensive backs is they got to know how to play the ball and play the receiver. So as you look in here, the defensive back's in phase. He's impeding the progress of the receiver by banging his wrist or his thigh. Okay, and then what he wants to do, he never wants to look until the receiver looks. When the receiver looks, you want to look and lean, and then go get the ball at the highest point. Here, does a great job of leaning and stacking the receiver, and now he can go get it at the highest point. What will happen, a lot of young guys will will try to catch the ball like with a basket catch without going up high, and you get these great receivers, and they'll take that ball away from you. Here's a really good job by the defensive back, impeding the progress, all right, leaning into the receiver, and now going to get the ball at the highest point. So now I taught the drill in my look and lean series, and now as I break down individual routes in my individual periods, I like to work the deep balls also. So now, as you're looking at the defensive back, okay, now his cushion gets broken down, right? He's got a man turn, right, and now he's got to impede the progress of the receiver. And as you see, the receiver he looks and leans, right, and has a chance to make a play on the ball. Now, this is the third phase of it. Now we're in one-on-ones. So as you're looking at the defensive backs here, we're in one-on-ones. His cushion gets broken. He opens. He goes for the cutoff. He goes to impede the progress of the receiver, and now he's leaning into him. Now he looks and leans when the receiver looks and tries to play the ball. And now we have a game clip here. If you look at the defensive back up top, we happen to be in press man here, but same thing, same scenario. He's running with the receiver. Okay, the receiver looks, he looks and leans, and can make a play on the ball. The second part of the look and lean series is out of phase. If you're out of phase, that means now you cannot touch the receiver. He's got you beat. And I really like this drill because it really teaches our guys not to panic. You know, a lot of young DBs always they want to look back because playing defensive back and especially playing some man coverage or even your 3D stuff, you're going to get beat. And what young guys want to do, they always want to look back and see the ball. And that's what that's what this drill teaches our guys not to do. So what I do is I start the drill off on the line, and I'll have the defensive back about 2 or 3 yards behind him. And he's got to sprint. And I teach him, don't look. All right, I'm going to throw the ball. And what you have to understand, a couple of things got to happen. First off, quarterback's got to get rid of the ball. Second off, the receiver's got to turn back. He's got to look for the ball, which allows him to slow down. And then when he puts his hands up, he's also going to slow down there also. So all we want to do is run, put our head down and run. And when you put your hands out, we want to time it up. So as soon as you put your hands out, I want to try to rake it with my hand and come down with something, get that ball out of there. So that's the look and lean out of phase. Now I take it to one-on-ones. Okay, so we go to one-on-ones. The defensive back gets beat. All right, but he does a good job of not panicking. All right, he doesn't panic and he just runs and he's ready to play the receiver's hands. Now, like I say, the ball's overthrown because the receiver's got to slow down, number one, to play it, and your defensive back is still running. And the other place I like to teach this technique is I like to teach this technique in the red zone. A lot of times in the red zone, we play flat-footed and we just try to jam. And turn to the receivers. And what this allows us to do is you get a lot of big receivers. And what we teach our defensive backs, still don't panic. All right, you want to lean into him. Okay, you want to lean into him. All right, as he turns back for the ball. All right, and then you just want to play his hands, and you want to go up through those hands and be violent. So again, just don't panic, okay? And when they put their hands up, you just go up through it and come down. And now here's a game clip of it as you watch the corner up top. Okay, he's in press coverage. we're in the red zone, and he just turns to his man and just plays the hands and just rips the ball out.
The next drill we like to work is what we call a three-speed back pedal. And what I like to do is for the first couple steps, I want the guys to just walk out. It's no different than we're reading the three steps. Or walking out, we're reading three step. And then after three steps, they pick it up where they're going half speed. So now they're walking into a half speed pedal where they're picking that up, and then they take 2 to 3 steps as they're doing that, and then we get into what we call a full pedal for another 3 or 4 steps. So that's how I like to teach the three speed pedal. So we're going through all the phases that they would be going through in a game or a practice in a live situation. And then at the end, I like to finish everything with a ball drill, and that's just a pet peeve of mine. I always want to finish with a ball drill, make sure these guys are catching the ball at the end, no matter what the drill is.
The next drill that I want to talk about is the weave the line drill. And the purpose of this drill is to teach a defensive back how to maintain his leverage as a receiver, stemming him inside or out. Most receivers, they're never just going to take off at the line. They're either going to try to work you inside or work you outside. And I think this is a great drill to show a defensive back, okay, hey, you always got to be ready to weave, so you can maintain your leverage, especially if we're playing any off man coverage, which all those receivers are stemming you, whether they're stemming you in or stemming you out. So I like to get the DB lined up on the line, and all he's going to do is he's going to work to the other side of the line. And like I say, he wants to keep it as tight as possible as he's working to the opposite side of the line. And then the two big coaching points is you want to keep those shoulders square, you want to keep his hips square, okay, as he's working back and forth on the line as he's doing so. And then as you look here, I'm finishing with a ball drill. Like I say, I try to, as much as possible, I try to finish all my drills with a ball, because turnovers are huge and you always want your guys catching the ball. The next drill I want to talk about is the W hips drill. As a defensive back coach, you can never do enough transition drills for your guys. The W hips drill, the purpose of this drill is to teach DBs to develop a quick reaction timing using various transitions, a 45-degree break, a side run, and a plant and drive. One of the main coaching points of this drill is my eyes should be on the quarterback the whole time. As I make that 45-degree break, I want to plant with that outside foot. So as you're looking at the defensive back here, he plants with that outside foot and drive. Okay, then the next thing I go into is I want to plant with the inside, with the foot near the sideline. As you're looking here, it's the defensive back's left foot. I want to plant off that foot. As I'm doing this, I always want to look at the quarterback. Okay, that's the biggest thing a DB can get himself in trouble with in certain situations. But I want to look at the quarterback. I want to get those hips open now with the side run, and then I want to plant. So I want to make sure I get to a depth about 5 yards, and I want to plant with the outside foot and drive out of it. And just like all my other drills, I always finish with a ball drill. But I love this drill. It's a really good transition drill that throws the various aspects of your breaks in it. The next drill we're going to talk about is the mirror shuffle series. The first drill of the series I want to talk about is no hands. What this allows you to do is work on a defensive back's lateral quickness. So especially if you play some press man or you play cover two, a good amount of cover two, you can work on those techniques. And I start off working no hands. And all I want to do with the defensive back is I tell them, hey, read the receiver's hips and you're going to work lateral on his movement with the first whistle. With the second whistle, once I blow that second whistle, the whole thing the defensive back wants to do, as you look here, is these guys, they want to take the charge. They want to stay in front, and they want to take the charge. So they learn how to move their feet to take away that initial release by a receiver, especially in press man. The second part of the Mirror Shuffle series is the one-hand jam. And what we want to do with the one-hand jam is now we want to aim for the breastplate. So it's a lot like the Mirror Shuffle. I mean, we're still working on shuffle and everything. But like I said, we want to get a good punch on the opposite breastplate. And then as the second whistle goes, now as they're getting the jam, they want to run. They want to run with the receiver. But like I say, you want to get a good solid jam, and you want to work that lateral movement. And like I say, it's another way to work your man technique. The box release drill is a drill that allows us to work on our press technique and get a lot of reps. It's another way of doing one-on-ones, but you're not using the whole field. You know, I'm breaking it up where they're about 5 yards in width and about 7 yards in length, and it allows us to work our techniques as defensive back. The first thing we always talk about feet, hands, hips. As you're looking here, the defensive back, he wants to take the charge. He wants to cut the receiver off so he doesn't allow him to get into his route right away. And then the second phase of it is he wants to get that opposite hand jam. So now we go from the box release to one-on-ones, and what it allows me to do, it allows me to teach a defensive back, all right, did you do the right things in the box release? All right, now they'll show up in a competitive situation here as you're watching the one-on-ones, and as you watch the defensive back here, all right, you see he takes that lateral step, and now he tries to get that opposite hand punch. Okay, as the receiver's getting into his route, because the whole thing is you want to throw that receiver's timing off. If you're playing some type of press coverage, right, that quarterback doesn't have all day, so everything they do is on timing. So our goal is to throw off the timing, and the defensive back does a pretty good job, and then he finishes pretty well. As you watch the defensive back here, does a great job taking his lateral step. He gets countered inside first, so he gives that left hand, which is a pretty good punch. Then he takes that lateral step, and then he comes with that right hand jam. But it's pretty well done here by the defensive back. Really well done here by the defensive back. As a receiver, hard stems him inside. He does a good job of cutting them off laterally, and then the receiver works back over top of him, and he just does a great job of speed turning and then going for the cutoff and finishing. And now the last phase of it is it's a game situation. So if you look at the defensive back here in the bottom of the screen, now he's going through the same technique that he worked in the box release and the one-on-ones.
Here we have the speed turn off of the 135-degree brakes. So they're opening. The DB's opening. He's in his pedal. He opens at 135. And then I give him another brake call. And what I want him to do is teach him to flip his hips, get that head around, get those hips around. Okay, and then we're going to get the ball at the highest point. So when wideouts are giving you double moves, this allows you to just understand, don't panic. All right, he came back inside of you. Um, you just want to do a good job because sometimes you're too aggressive on the uphill shoulder. All right, or they're going to give you a post corner route. You got to do a good job of being able to flip those hips and getting around. And then, just like we talked about earlier, we always want to go get the ball at the highest point. So I teach my guys that, and I try to rep this as much as possible. But getting those hips around and then getting ready to burst out of there and go get it.
The next drill I want to talk about is the W drill. The purpose of the W drill is to teach a defensive back how to develop quick feet in a short area using 45-degree transition. Helps the DB in breaking on the three-step. One of the main coaching points, the DB wants to take 2 to 3 pedals. He wants to take 2 or 3 pedals and break while maintaining a really good low pad level. Now, as you look here, you can have a good amount of guys in the drill. So you can have lines of about 5 or 6. And what you want to do, as soon as they break that first time, you want to get the next guy going. But the big purpose of this is they want to pedal 2 or 3 steps, and he wants to plant. He wants to plant with that outside foot. I always talk about get it in the ground. All right, so he gets that outside foot in the ground, then he wants to drive. Then he wants to do the exact same thing, get it in the ground and drive. So when you talk about three-step, whether they're running slants or outs or hitches, you can really get your defensive backs used to transitioning. And like I say, the biggest thing is they want it, like I say, I don't want it real long. I don't want them taking a lot of steps. I want them planting and driving and exploding out. And this is a good drill for that. And then you constantly work on your pad level. And at the end of the drill, like I said earlier, I always have a ball. And I want to throw the ball and have those guys catching it. The next drill I want to talk about is the W weave drill. One of the main purposes of the W weave drill is to teach a defensive back the ability to keep lateral position and cushion on a receiver. The DB has to maintain vertical and horizontal cushion. He must weave, keeping those shoulders square and getting depth at the same time. And this is a tough drill here. A lot of young guys will struggle because what will happen is as you're working and getting your width and depth, a lot of guys will open their shoulder. And if you look at the defensive back here, he's doing a pretty good job of staying square. And sometimes I end up telling them, what you have to do is you have to, as that right foot's hitting the ground, you have to replace it with the left. So pick it up, replace, pick it up, replace, and get your depth as you're doing it. Sometimes that's the easiest way to teach it to a young kid. But it's like I say, even though it's a tough drill, it's a great drill because it really teaches a DB how to get used to weaving as you're getting stemmed. As the receiver will stem you, you're weaving and you're maintaining that leverage, and then you got your transitions at the end as far as planting and driving out of there. But like I say, it's a pretty good drill, and if they can carry it over, they'll be pretty good. And again, it helps you if you're playing all out of off coverage and man. The other thing, if you play some cover two and you need your safeties to weave outside the hashes, it's a great drill to help them develop those traits they need as a half-field safety. And then you see the ball thrown at the end. Like I say, I always try to have ball so that we can catch the ball at all times. The next drill I want to talk about is the back pedal swivel to hips drill. The swivel to hips drill, the main purpose of the drill is to develop a DB to get his hips open as quick as possible and stay on top of the receiver. One of the main coaching points is stress pointing, getting that toe open north, and getting your head and arms around as quick as possible. So what I'll do with this drill here is I'll have 4 lines. I'll have about 5 or 6 guys in a line, and I'll give them a go command. And in the go command, they'll pedal 3 or 4 steps, then I'll open them. So they'll run 3 or 4 steps, then I'll pedal them again for about 3 or 4 steps, and then I'll open them and finish with a ball drill. One of the main things is what I want them to understand in this drill is I want them to understand that they're getting their cushion attacked. So as they're getting their cushion attacked by a receiver, they gotta understand they only have a certain amount of time where they gotta get those hips open as quick as possible. All right, so they can put themselves in a position to impede that receiver's progress. Because if they're late, that receiver's gonna run right by them, and that's why I really like this drill. Because number one, I want them to work keeping their pad level down. They want to stay low. All right, they want to get the hips open, and then they want to do it again. So it kind of tires them out. But by the time they start doing one-on-ones and they put themselves in a game situation or a scrimmage situation, they understand how important it is to get those hips open, get that foot north, all right, without really like popping up or having bad transition. So that's why I really like to work this drill. And then like I do with all my drills,